Aloha, Scott the Astro Manager here. I see a lot of people with a lot of fountain pens, and the hobby people say I've got a small collection and that's 30, 50, 60 pens sometimes. And when I started catching fountain pens, I knew that this is something that might grow. So I thought it'd be useful to try and find some way to organize so I can keep track of what I have, know sort of when I got it, any history behind it. Maybe I was going to eventually sell some of the pens I bought. I want to know what I paid for it or how much I sold it for. So I wanted to find some tool or like a spreadsheet or a database somehow where I could keep all my pens. And then, well, if you got pens, you know you're going to have ink, you've got paper, you've got nibs, all sorts of other stuff. So some way to just organize all those things so I could sort through it and find a given pen, or maybe I want to know what ink have I used in this pen, the different things like that. So I looked around and I couldn't actually find anything that seemed to do quite what I wanted. So I ended up building my own database for this. And I've done SQL on the client side before, so where I've queried databases, but I hadn't actually built my own database. And so I thought this would be a good exercise to try and do that. So I have something here that I just want to show and just show you my solution. I'm happy to share this at some point and see if there's any interest in propagating this more widely, because in theory I could actually put this on a website and then allow you to import your own pens and have a web interface to this. So I just want to show you what I've got, a proof of concept of a web interface, and something that could be useful for you. So here I've got showing on the screen, this is the MySQL workbench. So this is how I interact with it. I do it all in the command line, though again it's possible to interface via the web, and I'll show you that towards the end of the video. And this is where I do all my work. So what I've got here on the left here, this is the different tables. I've got a table for brands, and let's see, similar to brands, I've got a table for nib material and ink type. So these are instances where I didn't want to run the risk of me typing a name wrong, Leonardo, and then maybe I typed Leonardo or something by accident once, and then having two different search for things, or having pens not show up when I search for brand Leonardo. So I wanted to make brand, an index number. So I always say, okay, brand number 3, boom, look, that's Leonardo. So I did that for brands. I did that for nib materials, so steel, 14K, 18K, 21K, palladium. If I ever get a palladium nib, I'll add that. And let's see, I also did that for ink type, bottle, cartridge, or sample. But the main the main databases I work with, and they're going to be pens down here and inks. And I've also got one for discount codes because they're popping up on YouTube videos or emails. I wanted to keep track of those. Let's see, ink use. This keeps every time I change ink in a pen, an entry gets put into this database and automatically, and then I can see the history of inks in a given pen, all my pens, or I can see what's inked now, what I haven't inked in a long time, so I can use that database to make those sorts of queries. Interesting pens, when I see a pen that looks interesting that I want to keep an eye on, or maybe I want to save up for, put that on my next to buy list, I can add something to interesting pens. Miscellaneous is for keeping track of nibs, spare converters, whatever you want to put in there. So let me show you what's in here. So here in this window, this is where you can type your SQL, and I'll just show you what's in the pens database. So that's a simple command to look at that. So let me execute that, and then down here you can see the results. So I've got a pen ID, this is just a running number, a brand ID, this is the number corresponding to the brand. You can get the brand's database, shows you what the brand name is. I got the model, the color, the purchase date, the receive date, the sale date, the purchase price, purchase from, the sale price, nib material, nib type, what current ink ID, and use ID. So you might have multiple, you might put that ink in the pen multiple times, so it keeps track of each time separately, and then a place where I can add my notes. So if I'm in, let's see, let me go up here. Yeah, so I've just run select asterisk from pens, so this just shows a subset of all my pens. And if I wanted to change something, I can go in here and just change that field. Or if I want to add a new pen, I'm going to go down here and change these fields, all the nulls down here, and add a new pen in. So that's how that works. Let's go back down. So here I just made a short query to select some fields from the database. So I've asked to print the pen ID. This is the running number, the brand, the model, the color, nib. This tells me what material is in the nib type, what ink is currently in there, or null if it's not inked, and then the ink color. Right. So there are more fields in the pen database, but in this case I'm only reporting these. And instead of reporting brand ID, the number, or the ink brand ID number, and same thing with the nib material, I've converted that to the actual text, right? And so this sort of little SQL code there. So I've got an ink database, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's got again a running number for ink ID, the brand ID, uses the same brand table as the pens. Color, ink, type of ink. This is the cartridge, bottle, or sample. Size 50 milliliters, 160, whatever, small, large. Purchase date, purchase price, purchase from, finish date, and notes. And notice when I made this, I didn't intend to ever be selling any inks. I did predict I might sell a pen, but I didn't predict I might sell any inks. So easy enough to add. I could add a sale price here if I wanted to keep track of any inks that I wanted to sell. And one reason for keeping this, here's a query. Which you probably don't want to run very often, but a simple one-line query. Select sum of purchase price from your pens. So boom, right? You can see how much you spent on pens. I could change this over here to inks. Maybe a little bit less scary of a query to run, but who knows? Let's see how much I spent on inks, and let me just go ahead and put that back to pens. And maybe you want to see, but I've brought some money back in because I've sold some pens, right? So I could add this as well. So it's going to just how much money have I put out versus how much money have I gotten back. So because when I haven't sold, it'll be 0. So you could run queries like that. Here's another short one-line query: select count from pens. So how many pens do you have? Boom. And same thing. I could do the same thing here with inks. Let's see, this is probably scary, but hey, it's got lots of cartridges and things that came with pens, so to see what this looks like. Select count from inks. There's 56 inks in my database and in the drawers behind me. So those are the main database, and the rest of these are sort of just auxiliary ones, just for auxiliary supplies, but also for supporting those databases. The miscellaneous, this is where I keep track of what is it, just a running number, any additional information, purchase date, sale price, etc. So let's see, I've got an example here. So these are all nibs I've got in here. Item type nib, this is additional information about it, purchase date, price. Haven't sold any of these, which pen is this relevant for, and then notes. Then discount codes, similar. Here's where I've already done a query on discount codes. Got the discount code, the name, the URL, the code, and then the amount discount, or where else I want to use. So I can, if I'm going to buy something, I check here, grab the discount code, and save my 10% typically on that. Interesting pens. Again, these are pens that, so I'll just usually keep, I'll go ahead and describe to see what's in here. There we go. So this is the interesting pens. It's got an interesting pen ID. Again, just the running number, the brand ID, the brand of this pen. Interesting, the model, the color, the price. When I find this interesting, when I put this in my database, any notes I want to add about it. Brands. This is what I mentioned before. This is just where I keep track of brands. You've got a brand, the name, country. Maybe you want to see how many Italian pens do you have, how many Japanese pens do you have, so you can do that. And then what? And this what is whether it's ink, pen, or both. I don't think it's really very useful, actually. So I might take that out, or maybe someone thinks it's useful. So let me know. I've been filling it out, but I've never queried against it. Ink type. This is just my supporting database for inks. Nib material. So do I have a nib material query? Yes, I've got a nib material query here. This just got the item number ID and then the type of material it is there. And ink use. So this, when I change ink, so when I go into my pen database, I'll show you that in a second. I put an entry in here which includes the ID for this particular entry, the pen I'm talking about, the ink I'm talking about, and the start and end date for that ink. So when I put in a new ink, it adjusts that start date, and when I change ink, it changes the end date for that, or if I take ink out and don't replace it, it changes the end date, and then it creates a new entry for the new ink if I'm doing a new ink. And then I can add notes to that particular, hey, this one ran dry, or I didn't like this with this pen, it wasn't a very good match, however I want to do I want to do that. Okay, let me just write a quick query here so you can see what that database looks like. And you see you've got all these, and this is for every time I've inked or de-inked a pen. I've added some notes here for some of these. Again, so I don't query those directly, but when I do my typical pen query, so say over here, I can say what ink is in it, right? So you can write a variety of different queries looking at various different things like this. And for me, most of the time I have a few canned queries that I use. What pens do I have? What inks are in those pens? What inks do I have? And then occasionally if I want to look at some miscellaneous or look at the discount codes or something if I want to buy something. So let me show you now that I've just done a really simple kind of proof of concept web interface, so you can see what how I could do this, and so you don't have to write SQL if you don't want to, but you can just click and select things on a web interface and boom, get your pen. So let me show you that. So here's a sample web interface I made. I just wanted to prove the concept. It's not very pretty. The code behind it is not very pretty either, but it works. So here's a simple thing. Whether you want to select pens or inks. Here are all the fields in the pen database. And what I don't have here are the brands. I've got brand ID, the number, rather than the brand itself. So eventually, this should give you an option to add some of those conversions. I don't want the number. I want the brand name actually printed out. Maybe this could be pulled on menus in some cases. So in this case, I'm going to select pens and just give me all of these lines here. So the pen, the model, the color, the nib material, etc. So boom, hit that, and here's all the pens in the database. So that's just a simple way to do sort of a broad overall query. And then just to show that's possible, maybe I only want to see, let's see, I've been picking on Leonardo, so let's go ahead and pick Leonardo. So show me the same information, but only where the brand is Leonardo, and let's just make sure only steel nibs. And I can click on that, and boom, here are my Leonardos with, you can see nib material here is 1, steel for all of those. So what I'd like to do is I can make this interface a little bit more usable. If you have any ideas on that, please let me know in comments. And then I could add some canned queries, like the total value of my collection, how much money I've set out, or pens I bought in the past year. So purchase date within this period. So I could add the fields like this, where you would select based on this and give me these values, right? Either in a drop-down menu or in some more boxes. And so I could have several of those that are sort of standard queries that people might want to use, and then I could also have a window here, someplace where you could actually type an SQL code for anything that wasn't already in there. So in theory, this could be a setup where you go online, you log in someplace, you upload your data, and then you can maintain it from there and query it. But for me, my own purposes, this is useful. I got to learn SQL, I got to learn PHP. Unfortunately, I've done some PHP before, and then PDO, which is the way to use PHP to connect to the MySQL database. So it's been fun for me, and it's a useful product, so I suspect it might be useful to others. So let me know if you think this is something useful, it's worth developing, or if you've got something this already made and developed that's already out there. I can stop working on this, and I can just use what else is out there, because I'm happy to do that as well. So I hope you found this interesting and useful, and I hope you see me next time. Bye bye.